So I'm curious about awakening the dormant DNA, and curious if there's a way to do this that everyone has access to. That the way is simple enough that everyone can have access to it if they want. You have come to us with questions that are quite detailed. We will do our best to respond in such a way that you can understand. First and foremost, what is needed to awaken the DNA strands is a commitment to do so. The challenge with your world is that few have this level of commitment. This is also a good thing, for it filters out those who are not ready to ascend to the next level. For it is not wise to have so much power in the hands of one who is unconscious of their ability to wield this power. When one is ready for this level of ascension, they will cease to be interested in the games that humans play. We are not saying that these games are bad or wrong to play. We only say that for this next level of ascension, the games become uninteresting. When one approaches this next level of ascension, they lose interest naturally in the games that are being played all around them. They desire more alignment with their soul. They desire a deeper level of peace, and they gain fulfillment from that peace. At this level, the world becomes a very noisy place in which they desire to retreat oftentimes. Another sign that someone is ready for this next level of ascension is an awareness of how tired they are of being their ego self. They may not know how to let the ego rest, but they do know they are tired of ego running the show. This is necessary for the unwinding that will take place within the psyche. This unwinding within the psyche takes place before the awakening of the DNA can happen. If one is still attached to or deeply identified with their ego self, this powerful transformation cannot take place. With that said, we are not inviting you to try to get rid of the ego self in order to attain this next level of ascension, but rather to recognize the ego self for what it is, a mechanism put in place that keeps individuals from tapping into true power, true creativity, and true enlightenment until they are ready. When one is ready, they naturally begin to lose interest in the ego self. The ego self begins to naturally dissipate and merge into a whole oneness of higher self. There comes a time in each person's life when they naturally, effortlessly allow the ego to rest. They become disinterested in the ego self. When this ego self is resting, the powerful essence of the being begins to awaken. As the powerful essence self awakens, everything in the known reality begins to change. If the individual whose ego is resting and they are awakening to a greater version of their powerful essence, they will naturally and effortlessly awaken their DNA. However, if one wants to accelerate this process, one needs to only do a few things that are very natural and effortless. The sun is a huge, powerful source of awakening. The DNA within the body, breathing practices are a powerful way of awakening the DNA within the body. One of the challenges for the human has been to recognize the power they attain within their ability to choose. As the ego self rests, the individual naturally begins to awaken to the powerful choice they willed. When the ego rests, truth may enter the mind deeper and more profoundly, resulting in an awakening of one's power. Okay, so I'd really love to know, are there specific ways to be with the sun that assist, that accelerate the process, or breath patterns, specific patterns that assist better than others? Or is it a general, when I'm out in the sun, I get activated. When I'm breathing, I'm getting activated. We ask that you surround yourself in blue. For the frequency of blue penetrates deeply into the cells of the body, comforts and softens, allows energy flow where it may be stuck, not moving, and stagnant. Blue is a restful, deeply, peacefully powerful transport for higher frequencies. Surrounded in blue, one is more willing to receive new information into the cells. When you do your breathing with the intention of awakening DNA, having many breathing practices in your tool belt is ideal, as we can then guide you on a moment-to-moment basis of what breath will serve. All breath is designed to awaken and enliven the body, and each breathing pattern that you practice awakens different aspects of the physical self. The best sun to activate and awaken DNA is the first light of morning and the last setting of the sun in the evening. The sun tends to be the most beautiful to the human eye during these times, as an invitation to enjoy the healing benefits it has to offer. The ascension process for each individual will of course be unique unto themselves. A lot of the time it takes to awaken the DNA is based on the health of the physical body. The DNA can awaken only to the level the body is healthy enough to hold the frequency of the new energy. An incredible feature of the ego self is that as the ego self rests more and more, one naturally desires to be healthy in their body and will take the steps necessary to do so. The ego self emits a frequency of its own that assists in keeping the DNA dormant. And as the ego self rests, more higher frequencies of energy enter the body. With this higher frequency energy, new desires awaken within to recognize and bless the body the soul is walking in, moving in, living in. As this occurs, one naturally and effortlessly begins to honor and take care of the physical self, the physical body, in a new way. And as the physical self, the physical body begins to heal, begins to release the toxicity, the DNA begins to awaken. As the ego self rests, and new waves of information are now being received into the body system, more alignment with universal concepts and principles and truths can now enter and become merged and a part of the wholeness process of the body. Universal wisdom, intelligence, and data can enter into the cells and awaken the DNA. The least amount of resistance an individual has to this process will determine how quickly and easily the awakening of the DNA occurs. Anytime that resistance is present to the awakening of the DNA, you can know the ego self isn't resting, but is active. Our recommendation is not to make the ego self wrong for being present in your reality, but rather to see it, recognize it, acknowledge its presence. This acknowledgement of ego self is what assists it to rest. It is what assists it to take the back seat, to allow the essence self to come forth, to awaken. So now my question is, what does it look like having your DNA awakened? Like, what does that look like? How do you know when your DNA is awakened? Oh, dear soul, you will know. You will know. There will be no doubt in your mind, as everything in your reality will change. The process will be kind of a back and forth in the beginning as you learn to sustain higher states of frequency. You will notice intense levels of energy, movement, vibrations within the body at times, and at times you will not have those vibrations. You will bounce back and forth in the beginning. You can look at it as someone who is trying to wake up in the morning and they're finding it a little difficult to wake up. And so they keep going to sleep. They wake up, then they sleep a little bit. They doze off and sleep. Then they wake up and they doze off and sleep. This is the beginning of the process of awakening of the DNA. Only the experience you will be having is of intensified energies within the body at times. And at times you will not feel intensified energies in the body. As the body begins to sustain the frequency, the higher frequency of awakened DNA, there will be a sort of merging that happens, that occurs, where you will feel the intense frequency and you will know that it's occurring within the body, but it will not feel so intense as it used to in the beginning. This is the first phase of the awakening DNA process. The second phase will typically be an enhanced, effortless, psychic connection. You will receive information downloads at a level that feels rather intense to the human brain. This is because this information is meant to penetrate more than the brain and go into the cells of the body and ignite and awaken the DNA. This is where the DNA is activated. The initial stage, the first phase, is about being able to raise the level of frequency that can be sustained within the body. The second phase is the download phase, the download of information that will penetrate the cells now that they can sustain this high frequency. Once this phase occurs, the way in which you perceive all of existence will dramatically change. At this phase, the biggest job you will have is to know how to receive, allowing the energy to flow, which the first phase will teach you. At this phase, the world will become less tangible, less solid. This is the phase of what you would call miracles, but that we see as a natural part of existence for you as your DNA is activated. This is the phase that few on your planet have ever achieved. It is achievable more so now than ever before on planet Earth. We are excited for the amount of you who will achieve this awakening during this next part of Earth's existence. This is a leap for humankind that will radically transform planet Earth as you know it, and will assist in taking you, the human population, into peace with one another, love and union with one another. We call it the age of awakening. You have heard it termed as the age of Aquarius. We see this as the long-awaited great awakening of mankind out of the darkness and into wholeness, into peace, into clarity,